This is RHMax radio, coming at you live, This is RHMax radio. It's not a blue snowball. It's not a snowball, but yeah, I love the way Dipcatcher does. I told him in the green room next time I'm going to get that. I got a backup mic in case anyone wants to complain about my mic again. I've got a backup one that I just want to hold my hand because he cracks me up every time he gets on there. The Dipcatcher after dark thumbnails are just hilarious too. Anyways, welcome to the show. I'm Max, and this is a kaleidoscope. You guys know kaleidoscopes? Yeah, it's a kaleidoscope. So that's what I have in my hand. Welcome. Today we have Dipcatcher back for the fourth time. Number four. He's that good. He's that legendary. He gets to come back. Gold Key, we're still waiting on you, man. Gold Key, you got to join us one of these days. You came on for an open mic, and actually there's an open mic coming up tomorrow. You're welcome to join that one if nothing else. But Dipcatcher's back for number 4, and he's got a new thing to talk about. If you caught his stream an hour ago, you probably know more about it than I do right now. But if you didn't, you're in luck because we're going to talk about it here today. Talk about that, and of course, as the title says, Billionaire makes the blockchain. We all get rich? ? Not financial advice, but PulseChain looks closer than ever, and the fundamentals look just as juicy and tasty as ever before as well. And we got some pretty cool dev talk. A lot of questions that I'm not able to answer that I wanted to ask Dipcatcher. Not that I'm a genius or anything, but like this guy, he asking actual developer of blockchain products tends to work out for better answers from time to time. So excited to get into the weeds with him on it. Hopefully his brain's still working. He looked pretty explanatory and pretty galaxy-like in the last stream. So hopefully he's not too tired to go through it with us. But without further ado, everyone share the link, tag us on Twitter if you like. I think this will be a great stream. I'm calling it right now. Welcome to the show for the 4th time, the legendary Tanto Nomini.
Dipcatcher Radio, back again.
Yes.
I like your intro.
Dude, you do it
thanks
best,
for having me back on.
You have one of the best intros in the business, I gotta say. It's so, I don't know what the word for it. It's just so fun like this when you start your streams. You have a lot of fun in your streams. I love it.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. Yeah, I took a little break from streaming, but I don't know why, because I have so much fun doing it. But
I know, no more 6-hour live streams, man. What's up? The people want to see you code. What's going on?
Yeah, we'll bring it back. I should have done this one, but since this like the thing I just announced like an hour ago, there was a little more privacy around the algorithm itself, but then also like just sometimes just got to sit down and just knock it out instead of turning it into a whole entertainment production. But
I know, yeah. I don't know how you did it before. I think, people say Richard's quiet. That means, maybe something's about to happen or he's working on something. He even says when he's tweeting that he's not getting work done. But for you, it's like you can do these, crazy long streams where you're coding and teaching and asking and answering questions. And I'm outside with a lawnmower, just like with my headset on, I got to take my glove off for a minute. I got to talk to the chat. I got to say something. Oh, he's answering my question. Cool. Let's do this. Let's get some yard work done too. So I always love your streams, man.
Thank you.
Speaking of new projects, what's going on? Tell us about DCA, if I'm correct. Tell us what's going on with Dipcatcher algorithm.
Yeah. So a couple years ago, I built this trading view. I wanted to learn how to write like trading view algorithms and indicators, and so I learned their scripting language called PineScript, and I created a indicator that helps you dollar cost average into any asset that you like. It's called Dipcatcher, and it's some statistical analysis and also some basic support resistance analysis, and it just kind of synthesizes it all into helping determine what are good levels to buy, and then it actually gives you specific like limit order buy targets. So it's just a tool that you can plug into your trading view charts. It just helps you kind of understand where it is in the market cycle, and then helps kind of take some of the guesswork out of like a dollar cost averaging strategy. And so that's what the product is just a trading view plugin. And the way that we're rolling it out is through the launch of these things called access passes. And so you can mint your own access pass on pro.dipcatcher.com starting tomorrow. Right now it's on testnet, so you can go and do it on PulseChain testnet right now. But when you mint your access pass, it gives you two things. One, it grants you, like whoever the minting address is, it grants that person access to the algorithm, but it also mints them a buddy pass. And so the buddy pass is just a normal ERC20 token. And the way that you turn the buddy pass into access to the algorithm is you burn it. So, you mint your access pass, you get access to the algorithm. Now you have your DCA token. The token is called DCA. You have your DCA token, the buddy pass, and you can either give it to a friend or you can sell it on the market because there'd probably be a liquidity pool for it. And that's just how we're going to govern who gets access to this algorithm. And so we wanted it to be pretty scarce where, because if every person on earth had it, then it would just kind of lose its edge, because if everyone's like, just the dips would get pretty crowded. Like if a ton of people are using it, it'll get kind of crowded. And so we wanted to cap access to it. So the way that we did that was by making the minting rate for your access pass ratchet up every 200 minters. So 200 people can mint at the 0.025 rate, and then it ratchets up by 0.005 ETH, and then 200 people come in at that rate. So it'll just keep ratcheting up until it's kind of, maybe at some point it's unreasonable to keep minting. And then if there's no minting for 30 days, no more will be minted ever. And so each minting event basically generates like 2 passes to the algorithm. So, one for you and then one for the buddy pass. So, probably only a couple hundred or a couple thousand people will ever have access to it. So that's just how we decided to roll it out. The DCA token, like how you have to burn it in order to redeem access to the algorithm, it was heavily inspired by probably the only thing that I've ever invested in that outperformed Hex, which was a token called Socks. And that
I know that one.
You do know, or you don't know?
I don't know. Yeah, I did a lot of shitcoinery before this ecosystem, but I don't think I know that one.
Yeah. So this was Unisocks was Uniswap's first example of how the liquidity pools would work.
The Uniswap socks. That's the one.
500 of these unicorn themed socks, and the way you would get them is you had to buy the token and then burn it. And so it started out with 500 there, so 500 socks, 500 socks tokens. Now there's about 200 people have named them. So now the total supply of the socks token is 300, and the price of the Unisocks went from something like $100 to like $150,000 in like under a year, and then kind of settled out. Wow. Now it's like 30K. It's just shocking, but it's just because very low float. It's a lot of there are a couple big catalysts to the price. Like it didn't just go that high out of nowhere. Like it was Unisocks holders got the Uni airdrop in a big. So when you burn your Unisocks token, you get an NFT, and so during NFT craze, the price of those NFTs started going up, and so people were buying the token to burn it. So it was kind of just like some craziness that caused it to have that catastrophic price move. But when I always thought that was such an awesome way to grant access to a limited edition product, no matter what it is. In their case, it's that the unicorn socks. In our case, it's access to a trading view script. So that was the inspiration for how to do that issuance. And yeah, so that's it's literally going to be launching tomorrow.
Wow. And so just to clarify too, the buddy pass is the ERC20 token, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make that clear. Yeah. And then on the indicator part, so this is something that you came up with, and then it's like how, I guess if you were thinking about participating in this, what would you be able to get this plugin for TradingView that gives you this indicator that you could use to see when to make, like, it's an indicator for trading, so when to make good trades or not make trades.
It's not like so a lot of trading indicators, they have a buy and a sell. This one's only buy. Like the only like the main purpose of this is like to guide a dollar cost averaging strategy. And so it just, you know, plugs into your trading view charts, and then it just lays out on the chart, you know, like these different levels and then specific buy order targets. And so it's really like a tool for dollar cost averaging, and just a tool for like general like price analysis. Like it's pretty, it packs a lot of information in, you know, like the display and the chart. And so, you know, it's like, I like every single chart that I tweet, for instance, like you'll see the dip cat, you know, because I have the script on my charts, and so you always see it in all my charts. It's, you know, shows that it's there, and because like it's pretty core to how I analyze price charts. Like I like seeing how the dip catcher algorithm, you know, responds to it, and because it shows these bands that show like relative price ranges, and so it's and it shows some like interesting aspects about like kind of the shape of the momentum. And so there's kind of a whole lot that you can, you know, the more you kind of get into it, the more information you can glean from it.
That's what I was going to ask, is the track record. So you've been using it for a while then, and I'm just trying to think of like, you know, people who are coming in this, maybe they already have some indicators that they use. What I guess, how would you pitch this one to them versus the ones that are publicly available?
Yeah, I mean, so it's, you know, no indicator is like perfect. I think what this is good about is that like it's not trying to like buy and sell, like eliminating the sell side, like, you know, it's pretty, like it makes it pretty powerful, because it's like being for dollar cost averaging, you know, it's like a good, you know, it's just like a very powerful tool. You know, I mean, other things can work, you know, similarly, but I think this takes a lot of the guesswork out of it. And I think the secret sauce in this one in particular is the way that it actually a dip is, and the way that it identifies levels to place limit orders. Like that's like the, you know, because everything else is just math, and you can assume that anyone can do any math, you know, on the charts. But like there is some, I'd say, some discretion at dip is, and I think that's probably the best part about it. And it was actually originally like, because I made it early in 2020, so like I was into Hex, but like not kind of how, you know, Hex hadn't, you know, consumed me yet in the way that it kind of has now. And so it was actually originally made for Bitcoin, because on my I had these like these email alerts set up where it would tell you when it's a good price on Bitcoin. Then later on I added Hex to it, so I had these like email alerts that were powered by an early version of the one that's coming to release tomorrow. So
on your website, right? I remember you can sign up for price alerts on your website, I believe.
Yeah, I got rid of that, and we're switching out that dipcatcher.com site with another one. So that site is no longer live right now, so you can't sign up for those alerts anymore. But yeah, I mean, it was originally for Bitcoin, and when you look at the like the backtracked like price performance, it outperformed a like a general, like on the Bitcoin chart. The last I looked at the numbers, like when I took the site down a couple hours ago, compared to like had you just like dollar cost averaged by buying on every day during the last, you know, so 3 years ago now, almost, since when it was on. If you had bought only on the buy signals, if you dollar cost averaged on the buy signals and not just every day, you overperformed by like something like 77%. And so the strategy overperformed like a basic default to dollar cost average strategy by a pretty significant margin. And that was on the Bitcoin chart. That was the only one that I had like that back testing set up for. But kind of, you know, generally across all markets, it's pretty powerful. And even across different time frames, where when you're looking at it on the weekly chart, that'll capture like, you know, major macro dips, like maybe only once every 2 years. Like right now, or, you know, not since this pump off the bottom, it's kind of been tapering off the dip signal, but it was triggering signal from like the first time it hit 3 cents, kind of all the way down to the bottom. Before then, it hadn't triggered buy until or since like May of 2020. And so like because the Hex price just went straight up. And so during times of up only, the weekly chart's never triggering dip at all. Like you can go months or years on end without triggering. But on the shorter time frames, like on the 4-hour chart, like all these, intra week dips, it's usually kind of sniping those. So kind of so now that people have access to it, they can kind of craft it to their own strategy and how they're thinking about it. Where like there's the long-term the dollar cost averaging strategy that's good for, but also like scaling into the smaller time frames. You can get the shorter, like intraday or intra-week dips that it's pretty good at identifying. So,
is that the way to do it? Like, everyone talks about, especially in our community, don't trade. Trading's bad for you, get you wrecked. But is DCA, using algorithm like this, just the whole ethos of doing DCA, dollar cost averaging, is that, if you're going to trade, is that the way to do it?
Yeah, probably. So like, and specifically how there's not like a corresponding buy signal. That's not to say that like I won't roll out future indicator, because like there's dip catcher and then there's pump dumper, like I'm not to say that there won't be a sell side indicator at some point, but
okay,
like this one in particular, it is only for buying and it's framed around dollar cost averaging. So this just helps you kind of like find the best days to dollar cost average or the best weeks out of the year to be dollar cost averaging. And so, if you were to be trading, like meaning you're buying and selling actively, perhaps it could be a good way to choose when to buy, but then when to sell, it's all based on your own individual strategy. So that's a little bit tougher to say definitively.
Yeah. But so what about tomorrow? When it goes live, what is the exact process for people who want to participate? What do they need to do?
So you'll go to pro.dipcatcher.com and then you'll just click the mint button. And so by minting, so it's the initial minting rate is 0.025 ETH. So it's about $40. And that'll give you two, so your own access pass and then the buddy pass. So once you mint your access pass, you go to there's a page on the site called request access, and you sign a message from the wallet that you minted on that contains the email address that you want the script to be added to, because you have to like add it by the email address on TradingView. So your email that's linked to your TradingView account, I recommend people set up a pseudonymous email and link it to your TradingView account. You don't want to dox yourself to me. So but it, at the end of the day, it's just an email. It's not the worst if you don't have a email just for this purpose, but yeah, you'll just, like sign a message with your wallet. The system will check if you either minted or burnt a buddy pass to get access, and then it'll add you to the TradingView private script.
And then you suspect there'll be a liquidity pool for people who, so maybe that's a question too, the buddy passes, so you can buy, or the passes, so you have the tokens, and then you can buy a bunch of them, and every time you want to sign up, is it you would use you would burn them?
Yeah. So if you mint the access pass, which has your own access part, and then the buddy pass, you don't need to burn a buddy pass. So if you do the minting, you don't need to burn a buddy pass. The buddy pass is yours to do whatever with.
Okay.
But if you were to buy the buddy pass, like say on Uniswap, you have to burn the buddy pass and then you get access to the script. And so and I think what you're asking is like, say you're hoarding a bunch of these buddy passes. Yeah, you can mint as many as you want. And then you can do whatever you want with them.
Is there going to be a diamond hands that we can stake the buddy passes?
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Probably not in the initial the contract is so dead simple, and I like this idea was much like larger in scope, but then I just boil it down to like what's like the minimum necessary thing in order to get people access to this, make it limited edition, where not everyone can have it, and then some type of like crazy pumpamental, speculative element. And that's like the buddy pass. Cause like if all of them get burnt and there's continued demand to get access, and it have to be bought and burnt in order to get access to the algorithm, could be kind of like a Unisocks type of situation. So, that was so. All the things with like, they'll like, and also like the whole buddy pass thing was actually like a way to simplify the original idea, which was to have some type of like revenue sharing program if you minted during the first week. So the original idea was like, if you bought in the first week, you get lifetime revenue share. But because it's a smaller ticket item, a revenue share, especially on chain, it kind of breaks down with the fees. It's like, okay, cool, you earned $1, it'll cost you $3 to claim type of deal. So this was a simple way to kind of include that revenue share component, because like if say 500 of these get minted, that'd be crazy if 500 got minted. I don't think that many will, but it'd be wild. Say 500 get minted, then that means that in total 1,000 people will have access, because the 500 minters, and then each of those minters buddy pass. So that buddy pass was like kind of like we're already thinking of like a 50% revenue sharing system. So instead of doing it like on a per unit ongoing basis, it's like kind of front loading that revenue sharing by giving each person their own DCA token, and they can monetize it or do whatever with it that they want. So that was kind of a common theme in development of this, was just like simplifying everything. Even cool ideas, like if it was going to take more than 30 minutes, like the contract itself, it only took like about 2 hours to build, and also it's basically a modified version of the water contract from the Poly launch. So it's kind of starting from somewhere, but I mean, the contract itself has like 50 lines of code. So it's like, it's very simple. The only functions are the mint function, which is actually just a normal Ethereum transaction to the contract, and then also the redeem the buddy pass function. So there's only 2 user-facing functions in use, and it's just very, very simple. So all the cool ideas we had with it were kind of scrapped, and then this was like the version that was able to be built quickly without much effort and without like a whole ordeal around it. Like it's pretty simple minting, simple access granting. So that was kind of the goal.
And you only need one to get access, and you get it for like whoever holds the DCA token can get access to the script. Is that how it works? Or is there like a one-time sign up?
Yeah. So just holding the DCA token doesn't give you access. If you mint, so the way it works is when you mint in the contract, when I say access pass, really what it is the contract stores, it has a field called is member, and it's a function of the address, and it's either true or false. So if you mint, you're saved is member is true. So like your address is marked as a member. And then also that mints your own buddy pass DCA token. So if say you sell it on Uniswap, someone buys it from you, just by holding it doesn't make them a member. They have to burn it through the function redeem buddy pass. And when they run that redeem buddy pass function, one full DCA token must be burnt, and then they are added as a member. So like there is member of that address is marked as true. So then when you go and request access, where you go and type in what email is on the TradingView account that you want the signal to be added to, you sign a message from an address, and then it looks to see if the address that has a valid signature is a member in the contract. So the contract stores like the source of truth of who gets access to it. And then you prove that you can get access to it by signing a message and submitting it to the dashboard. So that part isn't on chain. There's no gas fee. It's just like a normal, like remember with the Bitcoin free claim where you had to sign a message containing an address. It's literally same thing, but in our case, you don't have to broadcast it to the chain. It's just, because it's like the TradingView system, that's not trustless. And so nothing involved with granting access necessarily needs to be trustless, because like at the end of the day, like, you know, you have to type in who to add to the trading view system. And so because that part doesn't necessarily need to be trustless, you know, that way, you know, the contract designates who, you know, gets it. And then, you know, from there, that's why it can kind of work in that like off-chain signing thing, because it proves that you have access. And then it's, you know, just you can get added from there. So,
is it divisible, or can you do like a part of one or just one DCA token?
So the coin itself is divisible to 18 decimals, but in order to redeem the buddy pass, you have to burn one full one.
Gotcha. The only other question I was thinking of is, what time exactly, people who want to participate, what time exactly is it launching, and how would they know so they can get started?
So,
and what the website, we had a question on the website too, but in a second.
Yeah. So I'm not exactly sure, because right now, so there's a testnet version of it going on right now. And so I'm just monitoring that to kind of see how, you know, any error messages, just kind of see what's going on, make sure everything's working smoothly, people have a fine experience and they understand it. And then basically as soon as, you know, I determine that it's good to go, I'm just going to I'll probably give like a couple hours notice. And it'll probably be after the day ticks over to the next day. So like after, say, 5 p.m. Pacific.
Okay. Somewhere through there. All right. And is there a website?
Probably in the evening. Okay.
Is there a website people can go to or be ready to go to by that time?
Yeah. pro.dipcatcher.com.
Pro.dipcatcher.com. Not dipcatcher.pro. It's a future project reserved for that. Cool, man. I was just going to go through the chat. I believe I understand it a lot better now. Does Jeff have jaundice, or is that just a Latin? I don't think he has jaundice. I don't think.
I think I had jaundice as a kid. Do I look yellow? Is that what he's saying?
I guess. I think you have a nice tan going on, I guess.
Yeah, I've been spending a lot of time in the sun. I don't know what he's talking about.
It's a jaundice in a positive way, I guess. Yeah, I think we all had it as kids, didn't we? It's like a thing. Let's see. The question on Hedron I asked about it in a second. I want to stick to the DCA questions for the next moment. What's the website? Yeah, I answered that one. Is DCA going to be audited?
So no, because the audits are just way too expensive for like this small scope, and also like the parts that because like kind of what I said earlier, like it all kind of is backstopped by, you know, it's not like a trust, like getting access to the algorithm itself is not trustless, you know, like realistically it's a trading view, it's not on chain. And so because it has that kind of break from that, it's like if there is any issue, it can just kind of be manually resolved. And so that level of like ensuring that trustlessness, it just isn't as high. And also compared to like the ticket price. And so, you know, that's no audit, but it is like to write this contract, I basically copied the water contract, which was audited. And so the whole part with like minting and like the burning for redemption, like there's nothing new in this contract that's not already in any of the other contracts that were audited. And so all the things that the auditors up to, you know, from Maxi through team, base, you know, perpetuals and like poly and water, like all those audits, they kind of capture everything that's inside of this contract. And so the audit just kind of wasn't necessary in this case.
Makes sense. Does the token give VIP access to DipCatcher parties?
I mean, it will store forever who is a member, and so
we're gonna do that email list.
Yeah,
I want to go to DipCatcher party. You going to Miami, by the way?
I don't know. I just heard about it. Maybe that's where when Goldkey and I started our first startup, our first like little hurrah was like we got invited to this startup conference in Miami, and so we just flew out there pitching this VR camera and VR app that we built.
So you got history there. Okay.
Yeah, so we definitely love some Miami.
Dude, let's do it. It's I mean, Bitcoin conference is going on at the same time, and it's Miami in May, which seems best beaches in the continental U.S. in my opinion. So I think I'm down. I plan on going as far as if I can.
Yeah, maybe I will. That'd be a good switch from Vegas.
Yeah, there's water there.
Yeah,
plenty of water. Vegas, not so much water. I had a question, Alex Sutton. What are Dipcatcher's thoughts on Hedron and its long-term potential?
I mean, I love Hedron. I mean, Hedron is a core component of Maxi. It's like one of the large income streams in Team, because Team, you know, like part of the bonus sharing is the Hedron from the pools. Poly, which is a 15-year Hedron staking pool. So across Maxi and in Maxi, for instance, it mints the Hedron and hoards it for 15 years. Poly is hoarded. So like, you know, and I think it's an awesome concept of like a token that adds a new independent income stream to the hex stakes. Like that's amazing. So yeah, I love Hedron. I think it has some like a lot of overhead from just like the who got most of the Hedron and how long they can continue to get most of the Hedron, like with the 10x bonus where like the amount is rooted in the T shares times the days served. And so what that means is that when the T shares were the least expensive was at the launch, where like price was 1,000 times lower, Hedron or the share rate was 3 times lower, and then those people got 10x bonuses that they can mint for the next 12 years. So that's probably the only bad part. Not even bad, because it's just like, okay, like, you know, the supply has to be distributed somehow. You know, so there's a little bit of overhead in that sense. And, you know, so I think Hedron, the token is great. You know, I prefer, like, in terms of like liquid stakes and like secondary market for stakes, I definitely prefer the perpetual pool style of sellable stakes compared to the HSI. But I do think the HSI is a good tool. Like HSI should be how the default hex stake is, because then it can kind of elite like for the main problem with the normal hex staking is like the whole gas issue, which we solve with the pools. If you could retroactively turn an HSI into a stake pool. Like if you own an HSI, like literally through the same mechanism that operates Poly, where it can like HSIs can go into a bucket and then you can distribute ownership across all of those and distribute the gas payment across everybody. So I think HSI is a good concept. But I think that, I mean, I'm obviously preferential to the perpetual pool style, like the ERC20 with multiple owners as opposed to NFT 1-to-1 owner. And it could probably do without the auction system, I think. It's a cool dynamic, you know, but it kind of had to be kickstarted with the ICOSA system. So I think that because it kind of had to be kickstarted with that external system, probably could have done without it, you know, but it still is an awesome concept. And yeah, so, you know,
the only thing about HSIs is I don't like the part where it stops you from saving yourself. I think, of course, for gas saving, and it depends on like how much hex and stuff. We talked about that before, but that's the only thing I would say is I wouldn't use them for my retirement account, for example, or the bag that I want to hold on to for a really long time, because they are liquid, right? So how do you reconcile that? Like, do you worry about that, or are you just like super self-disciplined? You don't think like all new stakes you make, are they HSIs or perpetuals, and you just diamond hands them, or you don't? Like, how do you do it?
Yeah, I mean, like I'll probably never do a native hex stake again. Only pools. My favorite pool is Lucky. I think just kind of seeing everything played out, and also because kind of to play on what you said, like a lot of stakes I think are going to be ending around the halfway mark. Like a ton of people that had max length stakes, I swear to God, are going to end their stake at the halfway mark and reclaim their principal. And like, because so many people are probably like already going to do that, it's like you might as well have just staked for 7 years. It's like there's not that. I mean, there is a substantial, because like a 7-year stake is 140% bigger pays better compared to the 200% bigger pays better of a max length. But so like twice the time, but only what is that, like 60% or like 40% more T shares per hex stake. Like I think there's a sweet spot there in the middle where with that shorter stake, and because it doesn't like clog the chain, because like a whole bunch of like everyone doing like the individual max length stakes, like it's gonna be horrible. It like not for the people that hold Maxi and not for people that hold pooled stakes, but for people staking on their own. It's just like it's a problem that gets worse every single day that people solo stake, and so that's why like I prioritize the gas fee savings because they can be substantial for the long stakes over like kind of having to like have the fortitude to not early end stake and panic. You know what I mean? Like, like I think that like I think people have a lot more resolve than they think. It's like if you're aware of the fact that you could like panic and sell, like the fact that you're aware of it means that you can counteract those feelings. If like, because like just because it's liquid doesn't mean you have to sell it. And you can do things to make like, like, I mean, even just for general security, like it's probably better if like your like high value long-term cryptos are not somewhere like where they're just like in your house, like there should be some added steps to doing, and maybe things like that can kind of help with some of the emotions. Maybe the dip catcher algorithm can kind of help with the emotions too. Like,
well,
so
I will say the portability as far as being able to transfer it out of your wallet to like a longer term, like cold storage, for example, that is one big benefit of, because otherwise, if especially people who started stakes 2 or 3 years ago, maybe they didn't know much about crypto, they didn't know where they're going to put the stuff, and they did a native stake. Yeah, you better take care of that wallet for the next 15 years or 10 years or however long. So that is definitely one benefit I could see. But saving yourself from yourself is what I optimize for, at least. But maybe, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Like when Hex started, and it was worth nothing. It's like you weren't thinking about big time infosec around your wallet, and that's
I was like, how can I, and I've been following Richard for a couple of years before Hex even launched, and I was thinking, how can I not, in case Richard's coin doesn't work out, can I at least get my principal back out? That's what I was thinking back then, just in case it doesn't work out. Oh, maybe I'll pick up a little bit more. Okay, I can't lose money now. This is cool. Yeah, that was.
Yeah, I was pretty lucky. I was generally pretty paranoid. I mean, in general, and also like before Richard, my main source of like high value information in crypto is from Trace Mayer, and his whole stick is about like, the proof of keys, and like he goes to the extent of like, like introducing the concept of like dedicated air gap devices, and different methods of storage and key generation. So like, but you never know how it's going to turn out. So it's good to have good practices anyways. But yeah, I mean, the portability and the fungibility is like a big, because you can kind of spread that out. And also like if you're holding like a pool token, say you put like 100,000 hex into Lucky, and you did that, and then your friend the same day put 100,000 hex into a solo stake. Say you only need like a couple $100 or a couple $1,000, you can just sell some of it. Whereas like ending your solo stake, it's like an all or nothing deal. So I think the fungibility for this staked hex is like a really good feature.
Just going through chat real quick before we move on to PulseChain, because we got lost to talk about from there too.
Oh yeah.
What's up, Monica? Monica loves Trio and Lucky. Dissing all of them. She can't decide which one's her favorite. She loves them all. That's awesome, Monica. Going to, let's see. Actually, I had a couple check the doc real quick. So definitely PulseChain, but also I want to ask before we get to there. I'll throw this up on the screen. 1 second, everyone. If you have any questions, again, put them in the chat, and I will bring them up as I can. But I wanted to make sure we get through some stuff because we got motherfucker. Come on, internet work. What are you doing? Oh, restart this browser. Bear with me, everyone. Something went wrong. Now is Twitter down? What the hell? Oh, you're killing me. To restart the browser. This is crazy. Again, everyone, share the link, and we're about to get into PulseChain here in a few minutes, but I wanted to cover some stuff Dipcatcher put on his thing. Let's see. So Maxi, so this is a tweet you had a couple days ago or so. Maxi was first developed in the first version of PulseChain testnet. Team Perpetuals and Polywater were developed on PulseChain V2B. Blank will be developed on V3. What do you say to that, sir? What are you hiding from us? What's going on with Maximus team?
I mean,
what is NIMBY?
Kind of a, nothing in particular, right? It was more like just kind of tracking it's more like a commentary on just like the stages of PulseChain testnet, where like there was the first version that we built on, then the second version, and then the DCA thing, that contract was a like that was on testnet V2B. It was more just like, who knows what's going to happen. There's more like that as opposed to like any one particular thing. There's certainly a lot of ideas kind of swirling around. This one, like the DCA thing, is like something that I've been wanting to do for literally forever, and like it's not like a big ordeal. It's not like a big it's like it's a pretty small in scope product, and so so that's the.
What about that rose on your shirt? Is that a signal? Are you signaling Maximus Rose?
I mean,
it stands for something.
Yeah, this is actually the next token coming out.
God, when can we buy it? When can I sack for it? I need to sack for something. It's been a long time.
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's anything in particular. There are some really good, like really compelling paths that we can take it. Like we definitely want to. We would love to have like an all-encompassing like staking system for all of our tokens, like across the board. Maybe not like Diamond Hands is like a long-term staking one. That's kind of our only, and then Team is like a yearly cycle, even that, but like some type of like shorter term, kind of more dynamic, like stake reward system. That would be awesome. We would love to have some type of referral program. So like find out all the coins that we like, so Hex, Hedron, Team, Maxi, Water, Paul, like literally all of our coins, adjacent coins, and have some type of referral bring back the referral. And so some type of like
make referral programs great again.
Yeah, referral system.
I just want to plug mine too, because I was half joking on the SAJ, because we did have Watts AMA the other day. Would that even be, so we're talking about collateralizing some of the bigger Watts NFTs, and you did Poly, which, originally was supposed to be backed by the HSIs. Is that direction you're thinking of, adjacent, coins, like having stuff backed by other, pieces of things?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a tried and true, like, and it's like a good, there's always opportunity there to kind of package assets that have their own dynamics, and then kind of introducing fungibility and liquidity to them. Like it's a good strategy. The Watsa, like kind of like a bat, like that is a really good idea. That is a cool idea. It's funny. I forgot the guy's name. I think he was involved in the Watsa art, and back when Poly was first kind of swirling as an idea, he was so angry that like about kind of encroaching on anything in Hedron, and he got so triggered when like he was just like, whatever you do, stay away from the Watsas. And then I was like, okay, we're gonna make a Watsa pool and name it after you. And like I was just kind of messing with him. But you know,
please pump my Watsas. I love people who nobody talks about Watsas about. I think because it was a limited edition, it was hard for people to get in. They can't get in anymore unless they get it on a third party or a secondary market, and all that. So I think they don't get as much attention as Icosa and Hedron on that side of the ecosystem. But it's like, they're great.
And also probably because
cool.
it's on a because it's an NFT, and then the trading on NFTs is not like on a Uniswap chart that shows up on Dex Screener.
That's a good point.
That's part of it, and yeah, I mean, it's I mean, I really don't know. I see that people burn their Watsas, and I think that it recently broke even in terms of like the Icosa you earn is worth it. But I don't know how much like actual like trading volume there is of the Watsas. I just haven't looked. But yeah, I mean, that could introduce more kind of price discovery to Watsas if just they were in a more kind of fungible and liquid form, So that's not a bad idea.
Especially the bigger ones. They're the M point ones. That's one thing, but you got the B point ones, which are thousands or tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars, worth of points versus Icosa's price. But we're hoping that prices go up, and if they do, they tend to be worth more money. Another thing I want to talk about before we get into PulseChain is this one. You have a lot of good tweets, by the way. That's why I'm going through. Phantom is probably going to be the PulseChain's toughest direct competitor. Explain yourself.
Yeah, so in terms of just like a DeFi ecosystem moving into the next cycle, because like in the past cycle, it's like there's ETH, and then of the ones, then there was like Polygon, which is like more of like an extension to ETH. And then there was the class of the layer 2s that were more like AVAX, which was like its own chain, like an EVM compatible chain. Whereas like DeFi, but like snow themed. So there was like Snowbank, Snowdog, like all kinds of shit, just snow themed DeFi. Mm-hmm. And then there was, Solana, which kind of had, kind of like a vaporwave style kind of DeFi and kind of their own thing. And then Phantom was like kind of like spooky themed DeFi, but of all those things, so like Phantom, AVAX, Solana, the reason why AVAX appeared to be so massive in size in their DeFi activity was because of 3 Arrows Capital. And so major blow up in like a major hub of liquidity in that ecosystem. So I think that's going to be hard for them to recover from. Same as Solana with SBF. Like SBF was kind of Solana's thing, or Solana was kind of like SBF system. And so that one had, but like Phantom, like while Phantom was certainly kind of, people that were trading those things and people that blew up were definitely in Phantom, like kind of the main people behind it. The main guy behind Phantom is a guy named Andre, who created Wi-Fi, who like is up there with Richard in terms of like DeFi pioneers, I would say. Wow. He created these like the Wi-Fi vaults. Those were like early kind of yield farming derivative assets. And so definitely, like a guy literally probably another person in crypto in Richard Hart's like wealth level.
Wow.
So
how does it compete with the Pumpamentals wise? We know PulseChain's built from the ground up with those in mind.
I'm really not too familiar with like Phantom's like supply issuance, like dynamics and stuff like that. When I was saying toughest direct competitor, I was saying like I was framing that more in the sense of like if you have a like some type of DeFi product, where are you going to launch it? And because Phantom, had a big run up in the last cycle and it seems to have improved since the last cycle, it's like already got some track record to work with. And, like the same qualities of like speed and where there's more centralization than Ethereum, but you can kind of sacrifice some centralization in order for higher throughput and different fee dynamics and stuff. So that was probably, more in terms of like, whereas like other things that could be classified in there would be like AVAX and Solana, for instance. But of those three, I just think that Phantom is probably better positioned than the others. But yeah, it's more like, in terms of those like use cases, like people that are going to launch something not only on Ethereum, where are they going to launch it?
PulseChain.
Yeah. I mean, if it's not PulseChain, or if they haven't heard of PulseChain, like Phantom probably is going to absorb a lot of those.
Nice. Well, and as far we talked about before, you mentioned the secret sauce to PulseChain is some of the cross chain opportunities and stuff we got going on there, and it really reminded me about this question I had a while back about bridging and liquidity. What can you break down too? Because I'm trying to reason about. I don't think a lot of people, they hear that bridging is going to be great for PulseChain. It's going to back up the PRC20s. It's going to increase liquidity in pools. It's going to enable tokens to use maybe their platforms with cheaper fees, all kinds of things like that. But back up just on that point too. Backing up PRC20s. What does that actually mean? How do bridges? How is PulseChain going to do these types of things? Like how should we think about them?
Yeah, I mean, so I guess the way it'll work is, so you get your copy. So, so there's Hex, and then there's the Hex on PulseChain. So then when you want to move your Hex from Ethereum over to PulseChain, your Hex goes into the bridge, which then issues you another token on PulseChain that is, going to be called eHex probably, Hex from Ethereum. And then that eHex token on PulseChain is independent from the copy of Hex that was made over there. So two separate assets. And then those two assets can trade against each other in PulseX. So, and that's why I think that like having the copies of the assets from the launch, and then also like encouraging people who are launching new things on PulseChain to also simultaneously launch the asset on Ethereum, is because of that, like having that speculative opportunity of trading the, like an asset, like a version of an equivalent asset on Ethereum and PulseChain. I think that can attract in a lot of bridged in liquidity to the PulseChain network. Just because, liquidity goes where there's opportunity, and that type of speculative opportunity of like, how is the market going to price Hex on Pulse versus Hex on ETH? Like, because there's a lot of uncertainty in that, like that uncertainty is the opportunity. And so the opportunity can bring in liquidity as people try to seize that opportunity. So I think that
could you go into the opportunity just for people who are just like, can you describe why would anyone would want to bridge in other liquidity into PulseChain with their tokens? Like why how do they actually benefit doing that?
Yeah, so say that like the price of Pulse on Hex measured in, or P Hex versus E Hex, say it's like 0.4. It's not 1-to-1, it's like 0.4 in whatever direction. So, and you think that that's like too high of a spread, you could deposit new money in there, buy up the one that you think is low relative to the other, and then sell it as the spread squeezes. So like that opportunity of like either assets being volatile or assets just being mispriced, anything where someone thinks they can make money, it's like you have to take on the trade somehow. And so usually that includes, bringing in some, like bridging in liquidity so you can make that trade. So bridging in value in whatever form, could be USDC, anything, to just seize that opportunity. So that's kind of why I think it can, like, leveraging the speculative aspect of PulseX pricing the values of a token on ETH versus Pulse. I think that can bring in a lot of liquidity if that's like really leaned into. Like, so, I mean, for instance, like all of our assets today, we'd rush to build, before PulseChain. I mean, we cut the Maxi launch was supposed to be 30 days, cut it to 14 because we thought mid-May. So, you know, we've always thought like kept that in mind for like, you know, with the copy in mind, but even for assets after PulseChain launches, so after the snapshot for the copy, you can deploy a contract to both chains at once, and it has the same contract address. It's identical. You know, they're independent from each other, but you know, so and that's what I intend on doing once PulseChain goes live is to, you know, any new asset would be launched on both as if it was there for the copy. Just because I think that dual chain aspect is like the most important part. Way more so than like just the low fees that will happen because it'll have relatively low use compared to Ethereum.
Let's say that I'm a Link whale or a Mana whale or some other popular coin on Ethereum, and I see PulseChain's launching, and I'm like, whoa, PulseChain's launching, cool. I got a whole bunch of these tokens. I wonder what they're worth on PulseChain. What would be going through my mind as far as just like making money via the liquidity providing or bridging? Like, what would you do if you were just a huge whale in one coin on Ethereum? Maybe it's Hex, maybe it's, you know, otherwise, and you're trying to look for those opportunities. Like, how would you actually take advantage of them?
Yeah, I mean, so if you're like a mega whale, and it's like, you know, say your copied version has some value, it may be hard for you to extract much of it at all. And so in that case, maybe those people bridge over and then provide liquidity and try to earn fees, you know, where like they don't necessarily care, you know, which one goes up relative to the other. Like they'll just provide liquidity across all ranges. So like that's probably, you know, some side of it. But also like the very large whales, they have a lot like lower tolerance for risk. And anytime there's a new chain, like there's certainly risk involved. And so I could see like the majority, like the people who are most likely to bridge their assets over to PulseChain are probably going to be more so people below some threshold where like it's almost like you have too much to lose, too much to risk on like a unproven chain when like, you know, it's like you already have your copy that's there waiting for you. And so like any appreciation in that price, it's like you capture. So you don't need to bear any risk of bridging your assets that have, you know, markets that have been around for years on a chain that's been around for years, like very low risk, relatively low risk compared to a brand new chain. So I think actually probably a lot of whales probably aren't going to bridge over because it's just kind of too much risk for not enough reward. And just as it kind of proves itself and builds out that liquidity base, then they'll probably start bridging in. But I mean, it is kind of a tough sell to, you know, for that, because like if you have tens of millions of dollars to lose, like, you know, and there's not tens of millions of dollars of liquidity on the copy, and you don't think there's going to be substantial fee revenue from liquidity provision, like there just might not be much of a reason to move that over. Maybe they'll play with their copies kind of because that's like a segmented, like, you know, they didn't have it at the start. So if something goes wrong, it's not like they're losing anything. So that, you know, just over time, it probably will change just as some of that risk is alleviated. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I could see a lot of whales kind of, you know, just kind of waiting to see, because it's almost like there's not so much of a rush. And maybe into taking on some chance, they'll just like, you know, send like a couple $1,000 over on the bridge in something where they're like, okay, like they'll take that risk, but they're not going to risk like bridging all their assets over, you know, until it has sufficiently low risk.
Well, once they bridge their assets over, what would they do with the bridged over assets?
Trade them or liquidity provide, which is just trading in a different way. Yeah. And also, I mean, the whales, they don't really care about the low fees, you know? So like they're not really prohibited from doing anything on Ethereum. And so, whereas like some smaller users, maybe they'll bridge over to like, you know, do something and then bridge back to settle back into Ethereum, but, you know, to take advantage of low fees for a certain type of contract, maybe for like trading or maybe like lending. But yeah, I mean, it's like those large players, they don't capture that value proposition of the low fees. So it's just kind of a different use case for them.
What would be like the ideal product? Or I mean, when I think of it, Decentraland, Mana comes to mind because I know I think before they had some problems of just using ETH for different stuff operating on the platform because it was so expensive, at least at the time. And maybe it settled down more now that we're in these market conditions, but it was pretty rough a while back for that. Is that something like there's some like crazy Mana where they got 100 million of Mana or 10 million or something, and they see PulseChain and they don't know if the product's going to work there. They don't know if Decentraland is going to configure the clients to work on PulseChain or not, to use cheaper fees. And maybe that solves some problems, maybe it doesn't. But they get their airdrop copy, they get their maybe they can bridge stuff over. What is the ideal product scenario where bridging over assets or a product on ETH really takes off on PulseChain?
I mean, Hex, like, I mean, if
Hex is a given, yeah.
But also like, the fees, the high fees, and like, the problem I always described with the Hex stakes being infeasible to end. It's like, it's actually a pumpamental. So like maybe Hex isn't even a good example of that, where like, because like in other things, like the high fees makes the value of the asset go down. But in our case, the high fee causes long-term staked Hex to not come liquid. So it prevents people from realizing long-term positions, which is very bullish. So like, I don't even know if Hex is even a good example for something to take advantage of low fees, because like, if everyone can afford to end their stake, now there's much more liquid circulating supply ready to sell. Whereas in Hex on Ethereum, say like half of the max length stakes aren't feasible to end. Like that's insane supply shock of like, as the market prices in the new reality, which is, the market prior was pricing in, okay, like all this Hex is coming unlocked, plus all this yield is coming unlocked, in the future. But then if like it becomes clear that a bunch of that is not, then, kind of how like in Bitcoin, the halvenings, it's like the market reacts to the new stock to flow ratio, where like the daily issuance cuts in half. And if like high fees, especially because every day that goes on, each stake, like a day one stake costs more and more every day. And so it could kind of have that same type of like halvening effect, where like the current daily inflation relative to like future daily inflation could have changes due to that supply that is not able to be minted back into existence. So, it can be quite bullish there. I'm thinking like maybe things that are like more consumer use cases can be really useful on a on a new chain, because like, you're giving up some amount of centralization in order for the low fees, and you're bearing some extra risk because PulseChain will be, even though it's a fork of Ethereum, it's not in an identical fork, but it's generally, so it kind of alleviates, like, it's not like a brand new chain, brand new tech, it's relatively well, tested in real life from where it's starting from, so that it's less risky than like a brand new type of chain. But like, and that's what we like, a lot of the use cases that I think have kind of latched onto Solana, like like kind of like consumer NFT game type of things, where like, it's like it's not big money use case. It's not like your whole life savings use case. It's not like big finance. It's like consumer gaming, or just like, so I think smaller scale consumer stuff could be popular, and there could be some like breakthrough game that just brings on millions of users, and like you have to be on PulseChain to do it, so I think that's there. Also, I mean, just like shitcoinery, like kind of how BSC was like a hub for shitcoinery, and then AVAX, I mean, all these chains, they kind of attract that, where you're trying to attract users, like you want to attract like 1 million users with $100 each type of deal. where the low fees kind of matter. And but the big money use case, they, like I said earlier, like they don't need low fees, and in many cases they prefer high fees, because high fee is a signal of permanence. Because if something's expensive to write to, that means it's a profitable business to keep that network operating. And so it's an indicator that the chain is likely to be around for quite some time. And if you're on a long-term time horizon with money you can't afford to lose, that matters. And you're willing to pay that fee because it's a signal that the chain is going to be there. But like low fees, if it's not feasible to operate, then, there's risk that it could just, what if all the validators just didn't, what if, just didn't care because they couldn't make fees. So that's like the, so I think kind of more like a lot of consumer or like kind of, use cases where like, it's not like a life or death mission critical thing. Where you can sacrifice some of that permanence and, and you can tolerate more risk because you can save on fees for like, your game or like your NFT project or something. So that's kind of what I see.
Awesome, man. Yeah, no, I like having these conversations because we can go in a lot of different directions. And I want to talk about the PulseChain dev itself, so testnet v3. What's the current state? Like, what is the from what you've seen and what you've heard? It looks like the code is complete. It looks like we're just syncing the blockchain, good to go. But what do you think? What is your pulse on the PulseChain testnet v3?
I don't know. I mean, I really have no idea. Like it's, because it's like there's like, I think the stuff that's kind of been that Richard's been talking about, that's like kind of the, like, it's probably just one of like a dozen big things going on. Probably the one that like maybe, I mean, I don't know, that it made no sense to nobody. But like, maybe that's like a dominant one, like a dominant thing. And pretty much what he was describing was that like of the 4 different clients, because like having client diversity is a good thing. Because like a problem in I mean, I guess it's been resolved by now, but there was a problem for a while in Ethereum where like 90% of the network was using, I forgot the name of the one, might have been Prism, or there's one particular client that almost everyone's using. And so that increases the risk of like if that was somehow compromised or something went wrong, it makes the network a little bit less resilient. And so having client diversity is pretty good for the resilience of the network. But then also like different clients have different purposes. So like a client that you would be using as if you're just like wanting to run a node to like, kind of check the work of the validators, like that type of like a user facing client is probably different than the client that if you're an exchange and you need to run your own node so that you can validate, your own transactions, and you can have that granularity where of knowing that like, you're not getting fed phony data, like you can validate your own data. Like, so that use case is different from like the consumer use case, which is different from the use case of if you're like a block explorer, or you have some like data aggregation site where it's not so much about like validating your own transactions. It's more about collecting data that users can use on your site. And so like one of the client versions in particular that he was talking about, that's something to do with, that's like the one that all the block explorers use, so like there's kind of different like variety to, just in terms of like what each client is kind of optimized for. That's, so that combined with just having client diversity is kind of what they're, what they seem to be working on and getting squared away. I didn't really understand what about like the syncing. I mean, it kind of makes, because with the clients, you have to have like the whole historical like archive, and that, it's, I mean, with Ethereum, pretty big blocks, pretty frequent blocks. Now it's like 6 years old or whatever. That's a lot of data. So kind of syncing that. And I think that those are like the seed for like, if you were to like go and get and like run your own client or like run your own node, you'd start by downloading what those things are like collecting right now. So I think that's what's going on. And then who knows what else, that needs to be done. It's impossible to say at this point.
Well, do you think they fixed the supply? Richard said, you keep saying the integer slot supply issue. You talked about that the other day when you came on the coding AMA about, hey, why don't you just reduce the supply and it's all good. I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're still times 1 million, I imagine. So if we're doing that, I guess, can you just explain like what he was talking about, what that issue was? And do you think they fixed it? Do you think that's still in the works, or are we good to go?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what this like the status is on that particular topic. But what that's about is because the PulseChain units, like when it's copied over, like each ETH is like reduced by like 10,000. It's like 10,000 x to 1. So just like the total number of PulseChain units is going to be much larger than the total number of Ethereum units, which on itself is entirely arbitrary. Like having a token supply of 1 versus a token supply of 100 versus a token supply of 1,000, there's truly no difference. Like the total number of units is entirely arbitrary. There's some psychology to it of like, some people want to hold 1 million of the tokens versus holding like 0.001 of the tokens. But there's really no big difference. I prefer holding like a fraction of a coin. Like I hate the bunch of tokens. Like that's probably my only complaint about Hedron is just too many digits. Like I hate seeing a bunch of zeros on the price. Like I want to see
commas. Need commas.
Yeah, I want commas. I don't want decimal. I don't want. Yeah, so that's kind of but in order to support that, because like each like log of someone's balance, that's memory that has to go in a memory slot in the blockchain. And so if you change that number, like a number with 30 digits requires more memory than a number with 5 digits. And so scaling up that number increases the amount of memory required. And so like the way that the blockchain is architected, it's based on, kind of the underlying assumption of like how much memory per unit, for like the numbers, like the integer system that the system uses. And so that's what I'm actually, and I think I spoke on that stream. That part actually kind of scares me, because there's not really any material advantage of scaling the units up by that many. Like there's really not a big,
if we're doing burning, wasn't that the thing? I remember Arch talking about a long time. We want a big supply, so we'll never burn all the coins. And if
you would have never burnt them anyways,
Okay.
Because it's like the number of decimals is enough. There's 18 decimals. So like, so like and then, if you did happen to get at the bottom, it's like you'll still get, even if you expand it, if you're worried about getting to like the lowest amount you could possibly burn, like meaning you're at that last decimal unit where like you can't just shave off that last decimal unit, because like going from if like say there's like a 5 in the last decimal unit and you need to shave off by like 1 of those last decimal units, you go from 5 to 4, that's like 20%. Whereas like, if it was burnt, whereas like 1 unit from like, 10,000 to 9,999, that's like 0.01%. So like that percent difference on that like granularity you have, it grows as you get smaller. But like I don't think there's any way it could possibly get that to that level. And if so, then that should just be part of it. Like it will deflate until it's mathematically unreasonable in 300 years. So but
2300 we're all in Hexaco, we don't have to worry about it, but everyone else is still dealing with PulseChain.
Yeah, I mean,
burning issues.
that's the thing that I'm concerned about is, like just making changes like that, when there's not some like huge gain from it. Like, yeah, maybe there's some psychology of like lower price units and people think price can go up higher, but like those are things that, like, because in Ethereum that had been set in stone at the start, everything that came after that and like everything to be built in the future on top of that is kind of based on some of those underlying assumptions and premises. And when you look at the EIPs, like, so those are the Ethereum improvement proposals. Those are like like when new things get added to Ethereum, they go through this whole EIP track where it's like there's different stages and there's different levels of peer review, and then the best ones kind of boil up to the top and then they get included. And it's like a multi-year process. If you read those, I mean, a lot of it's like techno babble. You have no idea what they're talking about, but a common theme across a lot of them is talking about like memory allocation. Like if you change this one thing, is this going to run into like the memory capacity on some other thing? And so I'm like, maybe it's me just being paranoid, but I'm worried that arbitrarily changing something that has to do with like memory, because when I read these EIPs and so much of the talk is about system memory, I'm worried that like making a change either causes some issue down the road that we can't predict, or it prevents us from being able to maintain like any future upgrades to Ethereum. Like, what if there's some like sharding proposal, but like the way that it was implemented by the Ethereum guys isn't compatible with us because of like some memory issue with our units? Like, just, you never know what, that's imaginary horrible right now because it doesn't exist. And so you know what to tell.
We're getting stock split.
But
We're
yeah,
getting a 1 million to 1 stock split coming up in 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, so that's just kind of, that's probably like, to me that seems like it's kind of like having that, like, the supply or like the unit bias, I think is what people call it. It's kind of like a nice to have, but but who knows? It could be no problem at all. Again, like I have no idea. Like, that's kind of beyond. Like, I'm more on like the application layer. I'm nowhere near like the actual like system architecture layer. But I mean, just from what I can pick up from the EIPs, it seems like that's core to how they decide like what gets rolled out, and that's like a core part of just like the technical considerations that they make when deciding on new features and stuff. So usually it's like trying to reduce memory consumption. You're on mute.
Damn it. I said hopefully the supply side is isolated from a lot of the other memory stuff. That's what I'm hoping for. Maybe the Richards devs can see that. They're like, oh, this is fine because we'll do this. So I'm hoping that's the case. But yeah, it is risky when you start playing with memory access and the slots and stuff like that. But I don't know. In Richard we trust. I think he'll figure it out, or we'll fork one day. We'll just fork and we'll be so rich we don't even care. Yeah, or we'll do the million for 1 stock split. We'll be like, you know what? We're going back to the original size. That'd be funny.
Yeah, and who knows? It could even be really bullish, where like if that was to cause a massive supply shock, where like a bunch of supplies locked, could be kind of bullish.
That would be, yeah. I just want to get to the chat real quick. We got a question from that Pulse player. Would you be worried if no?
I mean, not really. I'm truly in no rush. Like, honestly, like, until people ask me, I very rarely even think about PulseChain. That's kind of like, as soon as it's ready, it's ready. And the like with fees, it's like, okay, we've already solved the fees for hex stakes on Ethereum, for stakes moving forward. And it's like, at the time when the sacrifice happened, I felt like I under sacrificed, but now
join the club.
Now I fully am grateful for my, just honestly, just sticking to my normal, like, even though it's like a richer project, just sticking to my normal, like if it's pre-launch of something that doesn't exist today, then no more than 2 to 4% of portfolio. So like sticking to just like a normal, like how I would approach any other, because I mean, there's a lot I definitely dabble in a lot of shitcoinery. A lot of stuff I don't share with people, because if like it goes wrong, it's like I can tolerate the risk. I know what to do, but like I don't want to lead people down any route. So like, you know, I love shitcoinery, but you know, kind of that core, you know, just rule of no more than 2 to 4%, like, you know, until it's live. And so like early on, especially when like people were minting at like a 36-to-1 multiple from the like first day, I'm like, oh shit, I should have done way more. But then, you know, the market kind of turned, and just everything that's happened since then, it's like, okay, there'll be plenty of time to add to the PulseChain position when it's live. So yeah, I'm like, it could take years, and you know, it's like I'm not like basing, you know, I'm making no decisions, like no decision in like in terms of what I build or what I do is based on PulseChain. Like, you know, like I view PulseChain as like this awesome thing that's going to add to like all the greatness that's already brewing. But I'm not necessarily relying on it. So I think that's probably why you know, I'm totally fine with it to be even delayed further. You know, like it'll be fun, but like,
Yeah.
you know, it's you know, you always got, I heard this thing that, I forgot who it was. It was like an interview with this, like, it was like some old timey hedge fund manager. And somebody said that really stood out to me. He was like, don't believe your own bullshit. And so like I've started to try to like implement that in my own thinking. And like, you know, so that I think is like kind of framing that to myself has kind of helped me to like, you kind of put in perspective, kind of, you know, where things are. And, you know, so like, I'm totally fine to wait as long as possible. And, you know, it's like, what's there to even worry about? You know, it's a big undertaking, like launching this thing. It's not just like a new contract. Like, it's like, I can roll out these contracts in a couple hours because they are literally 40 lines of code that it's like boilerplate code. This isn't like a full block. Like, so PulseChain itself is a big undertaking. And so it makes sense that it would take a long time. And, you know, like, you ever, like, it's just like anything else. Like the people that are working on PulseChain, it's like, that's their job. You know, they're at work. Like, you ever had something at work that was like really challenging project that took longer than expected, and
Yeah.
you know, things changed during the time and you had to undo a lot of the work you did prior? Like, that's a totally normal thing. And so it's, you know, and just, you know, like I think people want it to be soon, because I think people just like want the copies, and they want their Pulse tokens probably to sell. But
a lot of people can't wait to dump the crap out of them ASAP.
Yeah. But honestly, if I was Richard, what I would have done was I would have just made the sacrifice, mint an ERC20 token. So rather than having the sacrifice credits be like how the supply is issued, the supply for like your receipt to get your PulseChain credit, that should have been listed. Yeah, like that would have been awesome. As if like you could trade it now, like that I think would have kept people like kind of compelled with everything. It would have created opportunities for people to make money in the meantime. Could have allowed people to like get fudded out and then sell at a low price and then get bought up by people that believe. So I think that actually would have been a very healthy thing. Is if like the receipt for your PulseChain sacrifice credit was liquid.
I believe it. I know. I know you prefer to do it reminds me of DCA and you know, the receipt for the TradingView deal. It's I had another question here in the chat too from Paul PulseX. See, it does look like PulseX, doesn't it? When I hear PulseChain 500 times a day, PulseX, pulse sacrifice. Yes. First 7 days of PulseChain launch, will PHEX chart resemble the ETHW launch? What will EHEX dump to? OA makes any saves? Yeah, your thoughts on the first week of PulseChain launch?
I I don't know. I think that there's some psyops around people that want the EHEX. I think are saying that EHEX is going to dump, and I think people want to latch onto that because they think high fees are bad for EHEX. And so I think combination of psyops and then misunderstanding of the impact of fees on price makes a lot of newer users think that EHEX is just going to dump. And, so I don't know. I think that if I was to guess over the first, I don't know. I mean, I think that probably EHEX will PHEX will be worth probably I would say 50% of the EHEX value. So if EHEX was, here's a better way to put it. So say EHEX at the time of fork is 10 cents. I think that EHEX itself will go down to 6 cents, and then PHEX will be 4 cents. And so your total value of your copy will be the same 10 cents. I even think the copy and it's kind of misleading. It's not so much like you're not getting a duplicate. It's actually it's getting split. Because if the same economic energy, it's you have your hex, and now suddenly you have it's just your total number of units are extended, and then half of them are on another chain. Because that applied equally to everybody, it's as if no one got it. And so I've started to view that copy more as a split instead of a copy. So instead of EHEX being 1 cent, and then PHEX being or EHEX being 10 cents, PHEX being 10 cents on the copy day, and now you have 20 cents of, it's from your perspective, it's 20 cents. I think it's more both of the prices go down, but then the sum of them may be equal to what the original one was. So
you don't anticipate the OA making any moves around parity or a discount? Don't want to see cheap-hex anywhere. Is that still in play?
I mean, if anything, I would see them pegging it to parity by just having, because there's if you add up all the hex that the OA and the sacrifice addresses have, the next largest independent holder is nowhere near the amount that they could just slap on both sides at 1-to-1 rate. And so no, and even 100%, if 100% of users sold in one direction, they could only eat into some tiny part of that. And so if anything, I could see that happening. And maybe that'll just kind of be the legacy of the OA, is that what if they just slap those into a double-sided liquidity pool, burn the keys, because it's not like the OA can extract any USD value from their hex anyways. And and the hex just sitting liquid in that, even though I don't think Richard cares that people feel some way about that. But it would kind of resolve that. What if all that was just locked in a dual side liquidity pool, or but in effect, what's happening, the reason why I don't necessarily think that would happen, while it could be parity, is that providing liquidity means you're selling. And so it's even though the OA and the sacrifice hex would be being sold for each other, any new person buying or selling, it's you're buying from that, and now that hex is now freed up from kind of the locked up OA. And so it is a form of selling. And so I don't know, and maybe not with all of the hex, but if anything, I could see something there just to pin it to parity, because the supply is just distributed so strongly in that direction that it could happen. But I mean, there's risk in doing that. I mean, I think that's why you don't see much liquidity provision now, because pretty high risk to be doing that. If you're pinning the price somewhere where the market doesn't want it to be, it's you're paying for it. So, and I don't think Richard wants to be paying for a price subsidy or something. So,
you think there's a limit to the benevolence then? You don't think that that may be where the line gets drawn?
Yeah, if a single act of benevolence prevented him from being able to do any further acts of benevolence, like, because it kind of lost that power, by, so I don't know. It's truly impossible to predict. And honestly, the OA could honestly do nothing. And that's also a great strategy as well. So, I don't think there's any saves to be made. And I think that, there are, actually, so I'm not sure. So I don't want to say this as fact, like as if this, but I heard someone talking about it I think it was Funny Jim talking about it, how early on, so like right when Hex launched, when the first liquidity pool was set up, those coins may have been OA related, or like kind of like that whole like recycling thing where like it was ETH that had gone in. And so that Hex that was put in the liquidity pool at like the ultra low prices, there's huge financial loss there because you're effectively like like it's like the Hex price went up, but you end up with a bunch of ETH type of situation. And so that was one instance of like huge, like, opportunity cost for having like injected liquidity, which, is fine because if Hex is the coin, it's like, if you're going to inject it somehow, at least like, if that really was OA providing liquidity in the very early, like first couple months, what that really means is that the OA was selling the very bottom to new buyers, which is actually a fine thing. Like, that's awesome that Richard sold the bottom to everyone through the AA. And if like there was liquidity provision in those early days, like those are all Hex that could have been his, but they ended up with everyone else. And then the price went up a lot. And so, that kind of works, but like there is opportunity cost and like, just providing liquidity at prices that the market doesn't want to be at. And then also, I think that there's no way to confirm, because it was Bitcoin. It was like Bitcoin that went into the sacrifice. Right after the sacrifices, there was like an almost equivalent amount of wrapped Bitcoin that was put in, cashed out for USDC, and then a bunch of USDC was put in a liquidity pool at some price. I think it was like, I want to say 6 cents or something. And then it just got yoinked through, in this latest kind of rundown. And that's like big loss as well. Like if that was, like OA just like kind of buying Hex or sacrifice buying Hex, like there's huge financial cost in like trying to do anything to the price. And so if those were actually, because there's no way to really confirm if those were him, but if those are two experiences that he's had throughout all this, and those are two things where, effectively it's just like losses, then I would make it less likely to, for some big action to be taken to try to influence the market.
That's a great point and great pieces of data there too. As OA learn from previous experiences, if those happened, and how will it change their future moves? Like that's gonna be interesting to look forward to and see. Just going through the chat here and see if we have any going to wrap up. Do you want to get to like, well, let's see, any more? I think we covered most of the PulseChain stuff. What time will it launch? I think they're talking about DCA. You mentioned a little bit earlier, maybe after 5 p.m. Pacific tomorrow. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I mean, when it's ready. There's no like firm, and it's not like it's smaller in scope compared to the prior launches, and so it's not like there'll be time, and it'll just, as soon as it's, I mean, it is ready. I mean, the from the looks of it, let's see how much has been minted on PulseChain so far. So the mint rate has ratcheted up to 0.06. So that means there's 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55. Okay, so that means that, wow, 70 people have participated on testnet so far. 72 minters on testnet. So
wow,
that's pretty good.
And you need ETH to participate?
Yeah, so it's 0.025 ETH, about $40 of ETH if you want to mint. Or, maybe some people might want to wait till to see what they can buy a buddy pass for. Maybe it's less, maybe it's more. You never know. It's gonna be crazy.
Dude, this is, everyone's like, 2023 sideways, sad year, boring. I think it's not going to be a boring year. I think. What do you? Maybe we'll go out on that. Like, what are your last words as far as what this year is going to bring? 2023. Looking forward for crypto and our beautiful ecosystem. What do you think?
I mean, I think things are looking bright. I mean, 2022 was filled with calamity between just general market cycle turning, plus the Luna stuff, plus the all the exchanges, all kind of blowing up together. It's all like they're all related. But now it's like a lot of it's kind of already settled. So, and then, like it's like in Hexago, we never stopped, no critical issues at all. Price went back down to levels of mid 2021, which was euphoric. Like, think about when price first hit 4.5 cents. Like, people were losing their minds. And so it's like there's really nothing to be that upset about. It's like price could have never gone to the all-time highs and just simply inched its way up to where it is now, and everyone would be euphoric. And so it's like I think that it's always a good day in Hexago, and all the stuff that happened in 2022 where like the rest of crypto was crumbling, meanwhile Hex had major advancements in its own financial utility between Hedron and Maximus. Like, 2023 is a bright year ahead. And we have what I'm excited about in 2023. We have our first base stake ending in October. We have the first staking cycle ending at the same time. What else? The DCA tokens will be, probably all be minted in this. I don't know how. I really don't know how many are going to get minted. But
what if there's thousands? Like, what if there's like 10K? Like, how does that affect the project versus 200?
So if there's like 10,000 minted, that just means more people will have access to the algorithm. So it's like, no big deal there. It could if a bunch of people had it, a bunch of people were using it on Hex, it could literally make the Hex price. But if everyone is trying to slot in their limit orders, it would basically just make a big buy wall. So it could have, like, if a lot of people were using it on Hex, then it could be like a pretty strong source of buy support. So,
and you can use it on any coin, right? Not just Hex. You can use it on anything. You have a chart for on TradingView.
Yeah, anything. But then also, if there was a ton minted, maybe the aftermarket, you could get more, like it'd be cheaper just because there'd be a lot more available. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of the, if there's barely any minted, then the price of the DCA one could go up a lot. But if there's a lot minted, maybe that helps push the price of the assets of the people that are into it, or the assets that people are into who have it, push those up. But yeah, there's not, it's kind of arbitrary.
Awesome, man. Well, as usual, been a pleasure. We went through a ton of stuff. DCA, PulseChain. We had Hedron. Didn't even expect that one. Thanks, everyone. Jerry Oaksmith in the chat. Thanks, everyone, for coming and asking questions. And sorry I didn't get to all the questions, but I have another stream coming up in a couple hours with Jerry and their Washington State local meetup friends as well. So that should be a lot of fun. You guys can tune into that. And the website again is, what's the website again? For the DCA. I'll put it in here again. pro.dipcatcher.com. So if you guys want more information on that, pro.dipcatcher.com, launching tomorrow evening, perhaps sometime. We're not sure. Follow Dipcatcher on Twitter, Tanto Nomini, for all your updates. And amazing to have you, man. Number 4, I think you literally, let's see, maybe Gifford Ware has been on like 5 times, but you're fighting for that top coin market cap spot. You're the top spot for being on the RHMax show. And,
might as well be a co-host.
At this point, RHMax, we're having auditions. Where's my kaleidoscope? Dip catcher radio. Just gotta. I'm telling you, man, that rose, that's a signal. I'm looking for Rose coin coming up next. I'm looking for it.
It's coming.
All right, everyone. With that, Scivive and 5555.